It's time now for business. Well, joining me on set now from our business desk is Charles Pellegrin. Hi, Charles.
Hi.
Making headlines this Wednesday is the EU reportedly planning on applying tariffs on Chinese electric vehicle imports. Tell us more.
Several media outlets, including the Financial Times and The Guardian, have reported that the European Commission should notify car makers this Wednesday that it will provisionally apply additional duties of up to 25% on imported Chinese electric vehicles starting next month. This will come as the EU has concluded its probe, or is concluding its probe, into whether or not Chinese companies are benefiting from an unfair advantage. The move would increase import duties from 10% currently to 35%, still far off the 100% duties applied by the United States in recent weeks. In terms of impact, the Kiel Institute, an economic think tank, has calculated that a 20% increase in tariffs would lead to a 25% drop in imports. Based off of last year's numbers, this would mean that 4 billion euros worth of Chinese EV imports would be erased. The think tank concludes that this will be offset by an increase in domestic production and a lower volume of exports as well, which would likely mean higher prices for consumers.
So what then, Charles, would be the reasoning behind such a move?
I mentioned it earlier. The EU has conducted a probe into what it considers could be unfair advantages handed by the government in Beijing that Chinese car makers are benefiting from. These include heavily subsidized financing, tax breaks, and access to cheap land, cheap property. This means Chinese car makers are able to put to market electric vehicles at very competitive prices, which has contributed to a market share increase of Chinese companies on the European EV market, doubling from around 4% in 2022 to 8% last year.
And what then would come next?
Well, these tariffs would be applied provisionally next month unless Beijing manages to provide evidence that disproves the case made by the EU investigation. The permanent application of duties would be decided and confirmed by EU member states in November. But there exists significant division across the bloc. France and Spain have championed the tariffs, saying it will raise billions of euros every year for the EU budget and protect local car makers as they build up their EV building capacity ahead of a 2035 ban on new thermal engine car sales. But Germany, Sweden, and Hungary have voiced their opposition, concerned about any potential retaliation from Chinese authorities and the increased likelihood of a trade war. Germany has exported over 260,000 vehicles to China last year, and its companies are operating plants in the country as well. Sweden's Volvo is owned by Chinese group Geely, and Hungary has openly courted Chinese investment, including with the construction of a plant for Chinese electric car maker BYD within its borders. On the Chinese side, state media there has already reported that Chinese companies are asking authorities to open an investigation into unfair competition from EU dairy imports. So the hints of a trade war there. Once again, though, we'll await from official confirmation that these provisional duties will be applied in Europe. But so far, the reporting on this appears to be unanimous.
How about a little check-in on the markets now, Charles?
Let's have a look in the Asia-Pacific region. We're seeing a mixed picture. Chinese inflation coming at 0.3% in May, just short of expectations, showing that consumer demand might not be there in the mainland, leading to a drop on Hong Kong's Hang Seng over 1% higher. Interesting as well to look at specifically Chinese EV maker stocks, which are dropping today, whether on the mainland or in Hong Kong as well.
Well, moving on now, Charles. 31 countries in Africa are on the World Bank and also the IMF's list to receive debt relief funds.
Vedika Bahel takes a look at two countries in particular, Zambia and Cameroon, and how people there are coping amidst the backdrop of mounting inflation and soaring interest rates affecting their cost of living.
Here in Douala, Veronica serves customers at her restaurant. But soaring fuel and food prices are wreaking havoc for her finances. Unable to raise prices in fear of losing customers, she takes the loss herself and reduces her portion sizes.
it's difficult. You go to the market, everything, prices have increased. Taxes, fare, increase. Electricity, the same. All the same, so we're just managing for now.
Cameroon is one of the 37 countries, 31 of which are in Africa, eligible for debt relief by the World Bank and IMF. Called the Heavily Indebted Poor Countries Initiative, it's designed to ensure the world's poorest nations aren't overwhelmed by unmanageable debt burdens. Whilst Cameroon's debt level is still considered manageable, across the continent, Zambia is in debt distress, with its economy riddled by inflation and high interest rates. Despite being Africa's second largest copper producer, with mining comprising 70% of its exports, the country holds fewer holdings in these projects.
But 60% of the ownership of all our mines in this country is foreign. So essentially is that the revenue that we generate is being externalized, and that is where the pressure comes in.
Last month, the World Bank predicted African countries' public debt could be on the cusp of a positive trend, thanks to inflation easing and countries' efforts to restructure their debts.
There we have it. Obviously, I'll keep an eye on that. And any news from Brussels on those tariffs on Chinese electric vehicle imports to the EU.
Charles Pellegrin, thank you very much.